Thank you very much, and thanks for the organisers. Another great conference. Peake and Denison Project, South Australia, a new copper exploration frontier. I'm not sure we're quite there yet, but we think we're well on the way. Standard disclaimers and notices. So I've got one company slide today. I'm sure there's plenty of people in the room who are aware that Demetallica is under a takeover offer from AIC Mines. I've got on there 87.5% holding in Demetallica. This morning it was 89%, so getting very close. I guess despite that, I'm here to talk about geology, and certainly that's a list of projects around the country, but I really want to focus on Peake and Denison in South Australia today. So what has Demetallica been up to, why we're there, and what are we looking for? Targeting iron oxide copper gold deposits, and I'll make specifically magnetite associated IOCGs. A little bit about the project and where it's located. It's around 750, 800 kilometres north of Adelaide, right on the northeastern margin of the Gawler Craton, on the very eastern margin of the Olympic domain. We've got 4 tenements covering 2,500 square kilometres. I guess importantly, and there's a theme that will come out through the talk, we think that the geology here has some striking similarities to the Cloncurry Copper Belt in northwest Queensland. Demetallica, and probably more specifically Minotaur, our predecessors, it's the same team, identified potential here a couple of years ago, and certainly we feel that there's very, very good potential for IOCG deposits here. There's been a number of basement targets with magnetic response that have been identified, and the project is currently under joint venture with Oz Minerals. Demetallica are the manager and operator, and Oz can earn a 70% interest by spending up to $10 million. Rather ironic, we've got a JV with 2 companies under takeover. I'm not sure that's happened before, but anyway. We did our inaugural drill program this year. It's certainly been a bit of a slow burn getting to here. A lot of work involved in getting drill targets ready, getting access. Had an awful lot of trouble finding a drilling contractor. Fairly tricky drilling conditions in the cover sequence here, so we got away with the program this year, and the first 2 holes intersected basement have got copper sulphide mineralisation. So some more about that. But first, maybe a little bit about why we're here and some of the really important technical work that was done, certainly by a number of people that aren't with Demetallica anymore, that were with Minotaur. Fantastic piece of work right from the get-go. There's deep in-house knowledge within the group of IOCG systems in Cloncurry, and we've very much applied that strategy here. Striking similarities to the alteration assemblages in some of the historic drill holes in Peake and Denison. There's only 23 holes into basement. Duncan mentioned there's only 28 in theirs. It's very, very sparsely drilled out here. Only 6 localities, and 3/4 of those holes were at one prospect. Some work done maybe 2 years ago now, dating the alteration assemblages from some of the holes at Peake and Denison, came up at 1520 to 1470, and those ages are near identical to the alteration assemblages associated with IOCGs in Cloncurry. So we thought the model was already working quite nicely. We just needed to go find some copper. Why did we select the project area, and probably more specifically why we put the tenements where we have? We applied a mineral systems approach. We really needed to pick up a large package of ground rather than postage stamp sort of strategy. District scale thinking was all about selecting this ground, and then feeding local knowledge back into other proven geological methods that we know work elsewhere, and specifically Cloncurry. So we've reduced the scale right down after picking up the ground, and focused on testing ideas, gathering new data to support that, and and then also support our approach going forward. So we needed to generate some targets to go collect some new data. Wonderful work by the geophysicists at the time, and came up with about 20 priority targets. 8 of those were priority 1, or what we thought very high priority Cloncurry type targets, and 3 of those were selected by the joint venture to drill this year, and they are Wentworth, Mawson and Wills, and hopefully they're visible on the map. Also required a collaborative approach, making sure that we're working with the right partners. A junior company in a frontier exploration area, undercover, exploring IOCGs, incredibly difficult task. We needed money, but we also needed a partner that would support what we're doing. So very limited exploration success out here. There's been no drilling for 15 years. We had this idea, maybe it was a bit crazy, but we needed to find a partner that would believe in us, trust what we were doing, and understands the process. And we've had a 7-year association with Oz Minerals, and I think they fitted, Demetallica's approach fitted with what they're looking for as well, so we joined together. It's been fantastic. We've also got fantastic support from the government here. We got an ADI funding grant, and that's been extended a number of times because of logistical issues, overrunning time, and we certainly thank them for their support. And the traditional owners, the Arabunna, have been fantastic, and the landholders haven't given us any problems at all, so they've been very, very supportive. So what did we do this year? We've recently completed a 3-hole drill program. Unfortunately, one of those holes at Wentworth failed to intersect basement. We had drilling difficulties in the cover sequence, so we only got 2 holes into basement. But both those holes have intersected copper at Mawson and Wills. Now, I'd love to be able to present the copper data today, but we're still waiting for the assays. It's taken longer to get it cut, get it into the lab, and the lab turnaround time at the moment for base metals has been incredibly slow. But nonetheless, we still think that all of the evidence in these drill holes, which I'll talk about in a moment, is pointing to magnetite-related IOCG type mineralisation in the project area. In our view, the geology is as we predicted. There's evidence for strong Cloncurry-style hydrothermal alteration. There's a very clear association between magnetite and chalcopyrite, and importantly, favourable host rocks for brecciation, and those rocks are also very receptive for sodic calcic ion alteration, which is incredibly important for magnetite IOCGs. In our view, the exploration model is already proven. The Mawson target. It's around about 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre in size. It's a discrete magnetic feature right on the edge of a regional scale fault. It also has an associated gravity anomaly. It's about 1,000 nanoteslas and 0.8 milligauss. And most people here would be more familiar with much more dense or higher gravity responses. And Tom, hopefully you didn't throw me under a bus earlier with that question to Duncan about Ernest Henry, but Ernest Henry is about 8,000 nanoteslas. This target is 1,000 nanoteslas, but it's still very, very magnetic, and there's still a very nice magnetic response for disseminated and vein-style magnetite systems. We drilled a single vertical hole into Mawson and intersected basement at 318 metres, and we got a couple of 100 metres of basement. Those basement rocks are felsic volcanics, and they're very, very strongly altered. No petrology yet, but given our experience, we're reasonably confident that it's full of albite, K-feldspar, the magnetite's obvious, biotite, actinolite and chlorite, and there's a little bit of copper in this hole. The central picture there is examples of felsic volcanics, probably a little bit fuzzy, shot with albite, magnetite, actinolite, and the yellow material is chalcopyrite. Very promising start to a drill program. The Wills target. This one's a ripper. It's about 1 kilometre square again, a very discrete magnetic anomaly. The gravity response here is not as strong, but that's okay. We've got copper. We drilled a single hole, vertical hole targeting the peak of the magnetic response. Basement's a bit deeper at 408 metres, and we drilled a little over 300 metres of basement. We ordered 650 metres of rods to drill this hole, and fortunately we had a few more and ran out, so it's mineralised to the bottom of the hole. Basement again comprises felsic volcanics, albite, magnetite, actinolite, biotite, chloride alteration. Exactly really what we wanted to see. Visible copper across 264 metres of basement, and again we're saying this is validating our exploration model. The alteration and mineralisation is exactly as we predicted. Some more photos. On the left-hand side, this rock has been logged as a metasomatite. That's because there's absolutely no host rock left here. That product you see there is entirely from alteration, dominated by albite. The green is actinolite, and it's got lots and lots of magnetite in it, a little bit of chlorite, and the yellow mineral you can see is chalcopyrite. On the right-hand side, they're felsic volcanics where the texture is still preserved, still intensely altered, albite alteration right through the rock, and lots of magnetite and actinolite veining, and we think that chalcopyrite is slightly later and manifests mostly as veins and brecciafill. The centre photo is of the uncut version of some of the photos on the right, and there's a very clear spatial association between coarse grain magnetite and chalcopyrite in these samples. So prospectivity. We've drilled a hole into the peak of Mawson. There's a second peak on the southeast corner, which is modelled up as a southeast plunging pipe-like body. Now, I've put on here the Ernest Henry deposit from Cloncurry, the footprint of it at 3/4 of its size. For those who aren't familiar with Ernest Henry, and I'm not suggesting this is an Ernest Henry target, it's more of a scale comparison. Ernest Henry is a breccia pipe, 250 million tonnes plus at about 1.1% copper and about 0.6 gold. It's a beast. It's been mined since 1997 and it's got at least a decade to go. That would fit inside that magnetic anomaly nicely. So we feel like there's plenty of room for a significant body of mineralisation if it's there. Mawson, it's not obvious in the two images here, but there's actually a second magnetic peak here. It's a little bit deeper. Importantly, again, I've put the Ernest Henry footprint on here for scale. I think this hole is a much more likely near-miss type scenario. The rocks are much more significantly altered and significantly more copper developed in this hole. So what next? That's probably somebody else's decision, but I'm sure whoever's looking after this is going to be wanting to do some more work looking for more copper. I think the assays will guide exactly what happens next at Wills and Mawson. We think, given the success of those two holes already, that the other priority targets at Oxley, Sturt, Thomas and Kingsford Smith remain a priority and have been elevated, and certainly the other lower priority targets, in my view, have also been elevated. There's a lot of work to do here to bring all of these things up to drill status, and I can see a very long future in this project area. Some closing comments. First pass drilling, highly successful. Both the holes that intersected basement have hit copper mineralisation. Whilst we don't have assays, all the evidence from the alteration and the visual chalcopyrite presence would suggest that we've got magnetite-related IOCG type mineralisation within the project area. Very strong evidence of IOCG hydrothermal alteration, very clear association between magnetite and chalcopyrite, and those host rocks are exactly the type of host rocks you would want to see. Many of the ore bodies around the world that are magnetite IOCGs have very similar host rocks. Geology as predicted, so we're very, very happy with the technical team's work on getting this project together, improving the model, and we feel like there's multiple targets left to be tested. And I guess to close, is Peake and Denison a new copper exploration frontier? Maybe not quite yet, but I think we're well on the way. It's a very, very good start. Thank you.